Hey guys, how you doing? This is a bit of an unusual video, but one of my students and who's one of my subscribers suggested that I do a video on what's happened recently, and I'll probably cry. I had to let my little I had to put my dog down the other day, and I'm not quite sure what angle to kind of come at this with. When I injured my back in 2014 and subsequently lost my gyms and couldn't do jiu-jitsu, as a coach anymore and stuff like that, I was housebound for a long time. And leading up to my first surgery, my partner noticed that I was getting very depressed, and because I was housebound, and she surprised me one day with a trip to a rescue place, a Staffy rescue place, and Mick at Staffy Rescue was really lovely. So we went round to the house, and there was like 14, 15 dogs running around inside the house, and I sat down on the floor, and one of them came trotting over to me and just lay his head in my lap and just cuddled up to me, and that just happened to be Buddy. And it's called Bruno then, but I didn't like the name Bruno. So anyway, I knew nothing about dog training. My grandfather was a bit of a horse whisperer and had dogs on the farm and stuff, but they were working dogs and stuff like that. So we took Buddy away, took him to a park, and I kind of just let him off the leash and let him run free because he'd been in a pound. He was going to be killed for dog aggression. He was very, very aggressive. He was fine with people, but towards dogs he was very aggressive. And so he ran away, and then I was hoping like he came back, but he came back. And then like the next day I tried to walk him, but because my back was stuffed, then as soon as he pulled on the leash, then I pretty much just fell over. And I told the wife that night when she got back home from work, and she's like, well, there's this guy Cesar Millan, this dog whisperer, on YouTube, and I'd never really watched YouTube. I didn't have the time, but now I did. So me being the kind of obsessive person that I am, I watched, I don't know, 40, 50 episodes, and I kind of saw his training methods. I started turning it into a project, and so I just made notes. I saw that throughout the various programs, episodes, that he kept saying the same things over and over, and this was kind of his philosophy of exercise, discipline, food, and affection, and that's the order that you should have a dog operate in. So I started doing that, and then the other thing was like rules, boundaries, and limitations, especially inside the house. And so I had no idea what to do, so I just did what Cesar suggested, and it took probably 6 months. And the aggression wasn't true aggression. It's like humans. Our insecurity is covered up by aggression. So aggressive behavior is indicative of insecurities. And so the cure is not to fix the aggression. The way you fix it is to deal with the insecurity. And you see the same thing on the mat in jiu-jitsu all the time, is that bullied kids and insecure adults and stuff like that come along, and through training and building their own self-confidence, then they can become calm, and then they can exude confidence. And so that's what I did with Buddy, and it worked, and it was incredible. So I decided that I wanted to become a Cesar Millan trainer, and so I set up like a little GoFundMe. I got some business cards made. I went around, put them in all my neighbors' letterboxes, and started training all the neighborhood dogs, which is really training the parents of the dogs, the owners, because dogs know how to be dogs, but the owners are the ones that screw them up. And so that was very disappointing. I would go spend 3 or 4 hours with a family and explain what I saw going on with the dog, and I could easily get the dog to walk comfortably with me and exhibit the behavior that was required. But as soon as the owner held the leash and the dog felt the insecurity of the owner, then, so dogs are natural followers. They don't want to lead. They don't want to be in front. So walking your dog with the dog in front is asking the dog to protect you. And dogs don't want to be in that role, unless they're specifically trained, like a German Shepherd or whatever. Then if you want the dog to protect you, if you want the dog to be aggressive, then put it in front of you when you're walking, because that's what you're asking it to do. So it's not surprising that when owners walk up to each other with their dogs in front, that quite often the dogs are aggressive towards each other, because they can't run away, they can't circle each other, because that's what dogs do when they meet, when they're off leash, is to dissipate the anxiety and stress of meeting another dog they don't know. They circle one another, so neither has an advantage over the other. And that movement helps dissipate the anxiety that they have. And so they play, sniff butt, walking in little circles, because that's where their pheromones and stuff are. That's how they find out about each other. And then once they've done their little walk, they can kind of decide if they want to play or not. And the big problem is that owners, when they have them on the leash, because the owner is insecure, that's why the dog's on the leash, and they introduce them head to head, they often have problems, because they can't run away because of the leash, and they're put in front of the owner, so they think they have to protect them. Anyway, so after a pretty poor experience, even just putting my business card on Facebook, inviting people, I said, I'm not a qualified dog trainer. I've rehabbed my own dog. I'm really passionate about helping people understand their pets better, and I'm trying to raise money so that I can go and become a Cesar Millan trainer in the States. And my wife had even booked, flights for me to go. And but then when I saw the reaction, because there's 3 kind of main training types. You've got what they call alpha training, which is kind of like what Cesar does. And then you've got 100% positive training, which is all treat training and stuff like that, and no negativity. And then you have the balanced people in the middle that kind of go, well, I'm going to, do a little bit of both. And they all hate each other. It's horrific. I thought that in the martial arts, my style's better and da-da-da, and the conflict that happens was bad. But between the dog training groups, it's insane. And the way that people carry on, where they think that they actually know what dogs are thinking, my reaction was always wow, it must be amazing to have a talking dog, because we're all just guessing. Everybody's guessing, and we all, through the different methods, we obviously find success, but it doesn't mean that you need to scold and hate and stuff the people doing something different than you. Anyway, so it taught me a lot about that, and I was seriously considering it as a career move, because I thought jiu-jitsu was over. But after seeing that hatred, then I'm nah, this is not an industry I want to be a part of. And so if friends or whatever have issues with their dogs, I'll go around and have a look. Or if somebody gets a new dog, then that's an awesome opportunity. Even before then, if they talk about I'm thinking of getting a dog, then I'll give them some advice on how best to choose the dog that suits them best. Because frequently people just choose their dog based on, well, it looks cute, but then when it grows up and it needs 3 hours a day exercise and you don't give it to it because you're too busy, and you just thought it was a cute dog for your kids, and now it's destroying all the furniture and wrecking the place, and you get frustrated, so you go to a trainer, and the dog, you go to a behavior, session or whatever, and you're trying to blame the dog. My dog is the problem, my dog needs to be fixed, my dog needs training, when the reality is you chose the wrong dog for your lifestyle, and even worse, if you choose a high energy dog, of of that particular breed, like a border collie or something like that, that needs a lot of. They're very, very smart dogs, and they need a lot of exercise. And Kelpies over here in Australia, like I reckon 5, maybe 6 of my neighbours all bought Kelpies. They're very cute when they're young. They look incredible. And they let the kids choose, you know. They're like, hey, which dog do you want? And they're like, I want the cute one. And they don't do any research on it, right? And then, you know, a year or two later, then it's destroying their house and it's barking 24 hours a day, and then they've got complaints from neighbours, and you know, it's a horrible, you know, situation. And yeah, so it was difficult. So anyway, you know, walking Buddy, initially I had to just tie him onto the handlebars of my push bike and let him just tow me around the neighborhood. Luckily the whole neighborhood was perfectly flat, so it wasn't very hard, but it gave me a chance to get out of the house, and him pulling the bike gave me a chance to use my legs a little bit. My legs didn't work great, and so like that was at least something that benefited both of us. And then eventually I could kind of walk. I started training him off leash because I couldn't hold a leash. So my first goal was to train him in the house as per Caesar's recommendations, train him at the front door, train him to make sure that he walked beside me and not in front, because if I open the door and the dog runs out and gets hit by a car, that's my fault. It's not the dog's fault. So you have to train the dog to be able to respect your leadership and to recognize that an open door doesn't mean that you run through it. It means that you wait for the owner to walk through first and you follow the owner, right? Because that way you can see that it's safe and the dog trusts you and will follow you and sees you as a leader. So that's very important, that first boundary, leaving the house, is seen as an important barrier or boundary. So, you know, for years it was difficult. I mean, 6 months or 8 months or so it took to like get him to get rid of some of the aggression and things like that. Occasionally it would kind of rear its head, and that would be horrible because I was pouring hundreds of hours a week into training him. And it was frustrating for sure. But eventually it came right. Everything was great. My body started to get better. I started, you know, doing a little bit more jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. And then eventually when my partner's mum got cancer in like 2017, 18, then we moved up here up to Gold Coast. And, you know, it was awesome from then. And that was kind of his peak years where, you know, like he was calm and confident, but he was, you know, still young and had a lot of energy and was, you know, he could jump over the back fence, no problem if he wanted to, you know, and that was awesome, you know, like looking back, like those were the golden years where he was just at his best, you know, as a dog. And, you know, and then I'd found a new career as well. I became a professional trail builder. I was building mountain bike trails and hiking trails, doing FIFO work, doing that. So like, that was awesome. My body started to respond to that. It took a while for my body because it was pretty weak to get used to it. But then, you know, the great thing was like, initially, like Buddy didn't respect my partner's leadership, which is very common. Women tend to be very empathic with dogs, and that's not really what dogs want. They want a leader. So if a woman is, it's typically the woman in the relationship is like very, very nurturing, and the you know, the male, the father or whatever, husband is more like, hey, like don't do that, you know. And so the dog kind of responds to that. It sees him as an authority figure, and they generally have more body confidence and have better posture and stuff like that. So getting the woman to exhibit more confidence, and even like sending them to jiu-jitsu or boxing, something that builds, even working out or even just walking more with a better posture, really helps build trust in that person. And so when I was going away doing FIFO work and the wife was left behind having to try and walk the dog, he refused. He didn't trust her. And it was really funny because I would get messages from Adele going, well, I walked him like 20 meters today, and then he just would bolt himself to the ground and wouldn't go any further, have to go home. And then the next day would be maybe 30 meters. And then by the end of the week, it was 50 meters. And I'm like, great, just keep doing that, you know, because there's progress, right? And eventually, after a month, he was just like, I guess the only way I'm going to go for a proper walk is with this chick. So, you know, I would come back on the weekends and stuff like that, and he'd be very excited. But during the week, he realized he has to learn to trust her, or else he's not going to get to go on these walks. So it was amazing watching their bond develop. Adele had been bitten on the face by a dog when she was young, so she had a fear of dogs right from day one, and she didn't trust Buddy. And then that's how the relationship started. Is he's like, hey, you don't trust me, I can feel that. Well, I'm not trusting you because you don't trust me, and then it's hard to build a relationship, right? So it wasn't until, you know, I was out of the picture for, you know, days or weeks that he had to lean on her, and she had to do the work with him. She had to, you know, exhibit the confidence and overcome her fears to even start trying to walk him. And so it was something they were going through together, you know, and then they both learned to trust each other, and it was amazing. 3 years ago, we moved up here to Loganley, where I set up a wee academy, and he loved the warmer weather and he was very relaxed and stuff up here. But he was starting to get older and he was starting to slow down. He wasn't chasing the tennis ball as much and things like that. And, you know, then maybe like a year and a half ago, then his hip started playing up on him and he wasn't so interested in chasing the ball anymore. And his walks were like walking around the block instead of like running down the beach and stuff like that. If he went to the beach, he would stumble in the sand sometimes. He loved swimming, so we started getting him swimming a lot. And he really, really enjoyed that. We got like, staffies typically sink, they don't swim well. So we got him like a little flotation vest thing, and he would just cruise around, chasing me around in the water, and it was amazing. You know, it was really awesome to see how excited he was about this new form of exercise, and I'm sure it was great for his confidence because he was terrified of water before because he couldn't swim. So him being comfortable in the water and just motorboating around, I'd be swimming and he'd always be chasing me and stuff like that. When he got tired, he'd just go back to the shore. So it was really awesome. But, you know, probably about a year ago, maybe a little less, then, yeah, he started to struggle around the house and he wasn't running anymore and the walks got shorter. Then it was just walking around the block. And we started going, okay, well, you know, this is, you know, that time slowly. But the last couple of months, the last 2 months or 3 months, then he's really gone downhill fast. He's had dementia and cataracts, and he's gone deaf and stuff like that. He doesn't hear very well or at all, and he doesn't see very well, you know, but his nose is still good, so he'll smell where I am more than anything else. But the dementia was pretty hard to watch. You know, he just walk up to a wall and just like kind of stand there and stare at the wall, or he'd forget where he was. He'd be halfway through the room and he would just stop walking and just kind of stand there still like a statue, and then he'd forget where he was. And it was hard to watch, you know. But you know, every day he'd have peaks and troughs throughout the day and stuff like that. And then about 2 months ago, it was getting bad. Like he was falling over in the house a lot, and he couldn't. Yeah, it was just horrible to see. And I googled, you know, like, how do you know when it's time? And I guess googling when is it time is probably the first indication that it's going to be soon. So that was horrible to see. His decline was really fast, and you know, his energy just dissipated, and his walks got shorter and shorter and shorter, and he'd fall over in the house, and we'd have to pick him up and get him back on his feet. We had to start putting mats all over the floor, because we've got a slippery floor, so we put mats everywhere so he'd have traction. So if his hip did collapse, he could get himself back up. We've changed our bed because the bed was quite high off the floor, so we got a futon so he could just like walk onto it. After a month, he couldn't even get onto the bed by himself, so we always had to lift him up. He wasn't getting up on the sofa anymore. He was just spending all day sleeping on the floor. The last month, he's been like sleeping 22 hours a day, and you know, it was happening fast. And then he started shitting everywhere in the house and peeing everywhere, and kind of losing control of himself and not knowing what he was doing. And so we knew that the time was coming, and So the other day after, talking to Adele, we agreed, okay, the time is now. Like he's not there mentally and physically. He's a mess. And so I got really upset, you know. Um, Tough to talk about. Cried a lot the last few days. And so I booked him in at the vets, rang them up, had a talk to them, and they agreed that it was the right time, that it wasn't good to wait until they're just like totally done. And so booked him in, and then what was going to be his last walk, he walked like 2 houses, so he walked 15 meters, 10 meters, and he fell over in the grass, and he just sat there and looked up at me. And he, usually he'd make an attempt to try and get himself up. He doesn't want to show weakness or anything. And he didn't. He just sat there. And I walked up to him, and the way he was looking at me, it was just like, Dad, I'm just done. And so I lifted him up, put him on his feet. And usually if that happened, he'd be like, all right, we're still going to the park, let's go. And as soon as I picked him up, I started walking to the park, and he just turned around and slowly walked back to the house. Like he was done. He was absolutely done. And it was heartbreaking because I knew that he knew that he was done. And I knew that it was his last day, And so wanting to make his last day special, I didn't want to get him too tired, but because then he just sleeps nonstop. So I said to Adele, I go, asked her to finish at lunchtime, and then I go, I'd really like to take him to his favourite beach over at Raby Bay before, we go to the vets. And we went to Raby Bay, and it was overcast, and it was quite serendipitous actually, because when we got there, Adele and I both broke down because for once the whole beach was empty. There was nobody on it, no dogs, and it's usually packed. And he had the entire beach to himself, and we just thought that it was beautiful that his very last walk on his favourite beach was alone. There was no other dogs there. He just had the place to himself. But literally as soon as he got down onto the sand and started falling over, he just started trying to make his way back to the car again. Even that, he was just like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. And that was heartbreaking to see that his favourite place, he just didn't even want to be there. And so we put him in the car and made our way to the vet. And it was just surreal. We were just watching the clock count down and knowing that, at 3:30, like that was the time. And after that, we weren't going to get any more time with him. And, we were a mess. The people at the vets were just incredible. It's really tough for them, and they sedate him and bring him back into you, and he's asleep, and we're just crying and holding him. And I said to the nurse, once he passed, I gave her a big hug, and I told her the story of saving him and how he'd saved my life because I'd been so close to suicide so many times when my back was fucked and I was having like hundreds of spasms a day and collapsing, and I wouldn't be able to get up for hours. I'd be at home by myself, and I'd be lying on the middle of the kitchen floor, and I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't get to my feet or knees or anything, and he would just be lying there licking me and would cuddle up beside me and try and comfort me. And it was very emotional because he'd kind of saved my life a number of times, and then I'd saved his, and then now right at the end I'm the one responsible for ending his life. And it was the right time. Too many people wait too long until there is no quality of life at all. And he knew that it was time, And if I hadn't had that kind of recognition from him, then I would probably feel very different about it. And I just keep, I feel enormous guilt, but I also know that, like, I gave 100% to the dog, and up until the last second, I gave 100%. And I gave the nurse who was lovely with us, I gave her a hug and just thanked her for the difficult job that she has to do, and that she made our time with him there right at the end a beautiful experience. And there was nothing negative about the whole thing at all. It was incredible. And of course, it's been incredibly difficult. It's only been, a couple of days, and I find I'm very emotional and miss him a lot in the morning, cry a lot in the mornings. And I'm just used to sleeping with him every night, and every morning I wake up and he's just beside me in bed, usually cuddling me, and it's very difficult, but I just keep reminding myself that I gave everything to him, that I couldn't have done anything else, and that he was an incredible gift. And every single day ever since I got him, I would have him lying on my chest, and knowing that one day that would be the day. And I would say to him that I'm going to be there right at the end. I'm always going to be there for him. I'm always going to love him and care for him and do the best by him. And it's very difficult not having him around. There's a big hole in the house, and it's really obvious. Even though he was sleeping like 20 something hours a day and he wasn't around much, I guess ultimately that's a way of preparing you. The process prepares you for his absence, because they are absent. They're usually around the house a lot and all over you, and then they're just there less and less and less. And it's really difficult, but they're a joy to have, and they teach us so much about ourselves, and they're completely selfless, and they're just wonderful animals. Adele and I got him like 6 months into our relationship, so our entire relationship we've had a dog, and we've never really had the opportunity to go away, or even for us to stay overnight anywhere or do anything special is really difficult. So we've always said that, like, when the time comes, like, we're going to spend a year or two, because we love having a dog. It's really an incredible thing. But I know through Caesar's teachings that you don't want to get a dog straight away, especially when you're emotional and stressed and you're not over it. It's the equivalent of jumping into a relationship while you're still grieving the loss of your last partner. Like, it's not going to help. And you need to go through the complete process of, your anger, anguish, and acceptance. And like the last few months, I've noticed that Adele and I have been getting a bit narky at each other. I think subconsciously we've been taking our sadness, converting it to anger, and getting, narky with each other, which is, very unusual for us. We don't argue or anything like that. We never have. Neither of us like that kind of stuff. And we've just been irritated with each other, and I think we knew what was coming, and we were just trying to deal with it. And since we put Buddy down, we're very close. It's wonderful for us to be there for each other and support each other during this difficult time. And now, I just said, look, one of the best things we can do is just start planning time for us, things that we couldn't do before, and so looking forward to going and see some of my friends in Hawaii and Bangkok and other places where I can go do some seminars to help pay for the cost. And Adele and I can actually have a relationship, because we didn't get to have our own kind of romantic relationship without Buddy, because we got him so soon, and most of the relationship was just marked with me in agony, unable to do anything, and it's not a great way to start a relationship. So now that, my body's in pretty good shape, and, we have the freedom to be able to do things for us now. So that's kind of the focus is on let's get back to having a great relationship and enjoy this time, and see that even this time is that we're getting now together, and the closeness that we feel is another gift from Buddy, that he, even in his absence, he's creating love and unity and stuff like that. And yeah, it's it's very, very difficult, but you know, I don't know what else to say. I wasn't quite sure how to approach this. I'm sure there's some deep learnings that go on. I guess that don't take anything for granted. Give 100% to everything that you possibly can. Don't be scared of love. If you hold back in a loving relationship, then you kind of can't expect that back in return. And I think also, when you give 100% to something, it's no different than rocking up to a tournament or some sort of a fight. If you know that you've given 100% in training, you're not anxious. You might be, a little anxious about the actual fight, but you don't have to worry about whether you're ready. You've done the hard work, you've ticked all the boxes, you've done everything you can to be in the best shape that you can be in. And then you just have to go trust your training. And I guess that even though I feel a sense of guilt and responsibility, because dogs don't get to give consent, and that was really hard to deal with, and I don't like guilt. I'm a very guilt-driven person. I try not to have regret. I try not to do things that might lead to regret, which will lead to guilt. And so I'm just aware that the story that you tell yourself is kind of what your reality will be. So you have to be very careful with your internal dialogue and what the story is that you're telling yourself, because if you say it enough, that could become your reality. So I'm just aware and keep telling myself that I gave 100%, and that everything I did, even at the end, was just nothing but love and with caring. And so that's the story of Buddy. Yeah. Anyway, if you've got any questions, just, let me know in the comments. Try and be kind. It's a difficult time. See you guys. Bye.